So today we have added another layer to this collaboration and we brought in Venture Dive into this. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Miss Razia, who's going to take over and tell you about the program today. So welcome to this venture with Venture Dive.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the exciting panel discussion today on the future of design education in Pakistan. My name is Razia, and I'm representing Venture Dive. I'm a senior product designer, and this is a collaboration between Venture Dive, Stanford, IBA, and CICT. So, Venture Dive is a full service software design and development company. And at Venture Dive, we aim to deliver cutting edge solutions that drive innovation and meaningful social impact. From mobility solutions to health tech, we deliver all kinds of solutions. And we're committed to building technology that matters in long term. Daira is an initiative by Venture Dive. It's a platform that was launched by the design team at Venture Dive. Through this platform, we wanted to educate young professionals and students. We wanted to bridge the gap between design education and the industry practices. We aim to organize under Daira. We organize workshops, talk shows, podcasts, and classrooms and other activities that help these other people upskill their knowledge and raise awareness and give them that confidence to enter the tech industry. And today's theme for panel discussion is also similar. We will be discussing how we can bridge the gap between this design education and what the tech industry requires. We have with us today four amazing experts who bring a wealth of knowledge and their diverse experience and backgrounds. First one, we have Atif Azim. He's the CEO and co-founder of VentureLike. Next up, we have Dr. Shakil Khoja. He's a professor and dean of SMCS at IBA. Then we have Junaid Aziz. He's also an alumni of IBA 2003. And then we have Bill Burnett. He's a pioneer in design thinking and has a diverse, remarkable career, including a program manager at Apple and a faculty at Stanford. Before we begin, I would like to invite all the guests to introduce to the audience about themselves, starting with Atif.
Okay, so assalamu alaikum everyone. Atif Azim, CEO of Venture Dive. Hopefully a lot of you have heard about Venture Dive here. I see some alumni of Venture Dive as well. Good to see you guys. Thank you for joining. And, we're really looking to have a good, engaging conversation about design thinking, the technology sector, and, what can be done with it in Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Shakir. I'm the Dean School of Mathematics and Computer Science at IBA. So, being in that position, I also take care of the Center for ICT at IBA. And as the matter of expertise, I teach HCI. So, a little bit of human computer interaction at the undergrad level, I'm familiar with. So, inshallah, we'll have an interesting discussion.
Assalamualaikum. मेरा नाम जुनैद है we're going to keep the conversation between English and Urdu, assuming that the smart people at Venture Dive will be able to put the subtitles where needed. So we'll put the AI and the tech people to task. I'm a alumni of IBA. One thing that I would like to see by the time this talk ends, we asked a question: who all is a designer? I would like to see all the hands go up right here. If we have a good discussion, by the end of it, we will find that out. All of us who are in this room, who get through Karachi, who survive a single day in Karachi, cannot do it if they are not designers. Because you're creating and solving for all kinds of ambiguity that comes your way. So by the time I end this, I want to see, I will ask that question again. And we'll see where the conversation goes.
Hi, I'm Bill Burnett. I'm a professor at Stanford, and we're here for this program called Silicon Valley and Karachi. I'm trying to figure out how to bridge the two places, both with our mindsets and with some very practical things that we think we can do together. This is my first trip to Karachi. I've only been here for 4 or 5 days. You have an amazing city. And you have a lot of things that I need to learn more about. But I'm really happy to be here, and we'll have a nice conversation about what I think we can do together, right, in terms of innovation. Because as Jay mentioned, you have to be pretty inventive to survive a day around here. And that's something that we can build on top of because there's this sort of an inherent entrepreneurial sort of, I guess, optimism that I've already experienced in my short time here in Karachi.
Let's give a round of applause for our guest. Okay, so in today's discussion, our focus will be on exploring how collaboration, leadership, and education can drive meaningful progress in design and technology, and also positioning Pakistan as a leader in the global innovation landscape. So let's start and jump to our very first question. And this is for all of our guests. So the question is related to Silicon Valley to Karachi, bridging innovation through design and leadership. What are some of the key barriers to bridging the gap between education and tech industry in an emerging economy like Pakistan?
I can go first. So the question was, what are some of the key barriers to
In bridging education and tech industry.
my experience in Pakistan, which has been for the last almost 16 years now? I lived abroad before that, etc. We started a company called Venture Dive, and the idea was that how can we take some of the experiences that we were uh, able to get while studying there, while working there. How could we bring that environment over here? I think there's been a lot of experiences that we've learned. I think one of the things that we see generally while and by the way, I want to step back and say, look, why, what happened in Silicon Valley that I think was important that I always talk about what we can make it happen here is the fact that there were three things in the valley that I think helped that ecosystem grow. There was the universities, which was the academia. There was the industry, which is willing to take on risk in terms of leveraging innovation being created by the tools that are being churned out. And then there was the financier. So all these three stakeholders, I think, played a vital role in making the valley what it is today. And I always have been a proponent that that's what we need to do here in Karachi or in Pakistan. But Karachi being the hub of Pakistan, I think those are the three stakeholders that need to get together. And the bridging that needs to happen is between the academia, the industry, and the financiers. Um, in my humble opinion, I think, you know, uh, from an academia perspective, I think there are some things we need to overcome in terms of curriculum, in terms of faculty, in terms of innovation and research. I think on the industry side, we need people who are willing to take on local products, right? Who are willing to share their local problem with innovators like yourselves and say, let's solve it together. And then the financiers. I think financiers just have to have a lot more of a risk appetite, right? I think there's a lot of options today which don't involve that much risk in Pakistan. And we need to see a lot more of the financiers willing to give capital to startups and to products and innovation. And even the enterprises have to do a lot more in terms of research budgets. But those are some of the things I think that need to happen so that those bridgings can come together and build the ecosystem that we had, or at least what we thought developed in the valley.
Thank you. Uh, since I represent the university, so I'll be talking about my sets of problems and how we are trying to overcome them. So when we usually universities are in past were considered as some sort of very solo structure that the student can come in and we prepare them for industry without having any industrial interaction. So this was the past, this was the history. Now, in every aspect, we invite people from industry, and again, we get different type of opinions. Like for example, some people from industry will come and ask us that okay, we need lots of skill-driven people, and we need people who are experts in one particular version of one particular software product. This may not be the job of a university, but at the same time, we want to inculcate the potential in the students that when they are in the industry, they are capable of learning immediately and practicing that. So this is our prime role. The second role is that when we are at the university, We try to interact with the industry and ensure that our curriculum is state of the art. And it's not only the curriculum anymore. We also have to create an environment. Like, for example, if I give example of IBA, we started entrepreneurship around maybe 15 years ago, right? And the idea was to bring in students, put them in some sort of activities where they can learn about opening startups, doing the things on your own, because we knew at that time that the jobs in the corporate sector and the employability in the the job sector is sort of shaky, or it is not capable of providing jobs to every student who is graduating in Pakistan. So if a student is going towards startup, that is something which is great, because then that particular student will be producing more. So that was one thing. The second thing was opening up the curriculum and ensuring that the student should learn techniques, new dimensions of learning, and things like that. The final thing that we work on is that we ensure that the student should be capable of going towards lifelong learning. So, like for example, if the technology changes, if new things are coming up, the student should be capable of learning that new technology or new things at his or her own pace. So that is the job of a university, and yet we are trying to do that, but still challenges are ahead.
Let me specifically talk about the idea of innovation in the university, because it's something that we do a lot of where I'm at. In the early 50s, 1950s, our dean of engineering, Fred Terman, suggested that two young engineers start a company. They had invented some things like in the electronics space, and he said, "You should start a company. In fact, you should start a company. I'll find some people who'll give you some money. In fact, I'll give you some money." This is Fred Terman, and the two engineers were Bill Hewlett and David Packard, and they started Hewlett Packard. We have a system at Stanford that generates trillions of dollars of startup wealth by moving almost seamlessly from the university to the startup and back again. And we've done it in a very, very simple way so that all of the incentives are aligned. If I have an invention that we invent in my lab, I go to the Office of Technology Transfer, say, "I have an invention." They say, "Fantastic. Let's patent that invention." Okay. I think I want to do a startup with my invention. They go, "Great. Here's your license." 1/3 of the license revenue comes to my lab. 1/3 of the license revenue comes to Stanford. I keep the rest of it. That's just me as an individual. The startup has licensed the technology. Whatever they do with it, off they go. And we might sometimes take stock in the company. We might sometimes just take a royalty. Stanford owns the Google algorithm. The Google students, working with Terry Winograd, built this algorithm for the original search. And Stanford said, this time, let's take stock instead. This looks like a good one. We'll take a little bit of stock. That was about $1 billion worth of stock for the university. John Chowning in the late 80s invented FM synthesis, which is in every single synthesizer keyboard on the planet. That patent probably worth $650 million to the university, and $650 million to John, and $650 million to his lab. His lab is the best lab on campus because you don't need to raise any money because it has so much money from that one invention. So what I'm pointing out, not that we're special, it's like make it simple, make it transparent, make it really easy. My advisor, who started the design program, had spun off 2 companies. He drove a Porsche. He had nice Italian leather jackets. We all wanted to be like my professor. And so we really learned a lot because we thought, we want to be like this guy. My daughter worked in a lab, and the head of the lab in biotechnology and cancer immunology is spun off 3 companies, one after the other, with fundamental cancer therapies. And that's made the university wealthy, it's made him wealthy, and it helped the world, to try to develop a cure for a horrible disease. So if you want to do this, and Berkeley does a similar thing, and Santa Clara does a similar thing, just in Silicon Valley. UCSF does a similar thing. UCSF has some of the best medical startups on the planet. Make it simple. You don't have to there's no negotiating a deal. Here's the deal. You get the same deal everybody gets. Make it transparent so that everybody knows it's fair, and make it fast. Because many of these inventions, if it had taken the Google guys, if it had taken Sergey and Larry 3 years to negotiate a deal with the university, somebody would have crushed them. So I'm here to help people to develop this. And I've met some of the faculty who's teaching the entrepreneurship program. And the entrepreneurship program is fantastic. But now we've got to get to the other piece of that is like, where are the unicorns? Where are the startups? I'm just learning. I know they're there. I'm learning more about, but how easy is it for them to find capital? How easy is it for them to set up an organization? How easy is it for them to license technology from the university or from elsewhere? That's the stuff that makes Silicon Valley work so fast. And remember, 9 out of 10 of the companies we start fail. 9 out of 10 of the companies we start fail. That's what you have to be willing to do if you want to have innovation.
Right done. How about we do this? How many seats do we have? So, right, everyone has to ask 2 questions. And I will give up my time to invite a question from the audience so that I think this will be more engaging. These 3 have covered pretty much everything that needs to be covered. So how about we let a designer ask a question based on what you've heard and try and answer that?
Ask a question about innovation and technology and design and the university.
There has to be a reason why you guys are sit down.
I have a question. Immediately. Loud enough, I think. So I work in a university. I've worked with plenty of them beforehand also. One of the things which I find is a very, again, I would like to hear your opinion on that, is Bill rightly mentioned client. The university, the faculty, somebody there to cough up the first check so that A, trust is instilled in the startup. They know that somebody's backing them. And B, they have their first, like, I would say like a buyer or a user or something like that. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, because again, I've headed an incubation center at IOBM and now I'm at IBA. We don't have that kind of buy-in. We have amazing young talent here. The university has millions of problems with, for example, entering data or something like that. Any one of the bright kids within the university can solve that problem, but the university isn't willing to buy their product from them. So I think one of the biggest gaps which is existing is we talk about entrepreneurship, but nobody's willing to take that first risk in the first customer.
You need risk capital, and you don't have it. It's hard to get started without money.
So what do you? No, yeah, I want to know whether it's good that honest or not. Yeah.
So, in my opinion, we can re-articulate the problem. And probably it's not IB or any university's problem. Let's try and solve for things that we can solve. As designers, let's build so much more of a compelling product. Let's have our innovation so amazing, so breakthrough that we get through that barrier. Because fact of the matter is, as Bill is saying, that Google algorithm, that lab which had the transmission thing, or whatever else happens, there are designers who absolutely knock down the barrier. The barriers are everywhere. We do have an advantage in Karachi that there are so many problems to solve. Just going around it, we can also see that the scale of innovation does not have to be moonshot level. So let's, as designers, control what we can control for and just build much better products. Let's just have much better design in play, and maybe the money will follow. Money always follows. Money just follows more money. So let's build products. That's my solution.
Okay. First, I'll admit that the problem is genuine. We have, even at IBA, we have problems of red tapeism, bureaucracy. We have people who are not ready to change. Let me give you one Let me ask one question. How many of you really believe that a 3 hour long explanation is the best thing to gauge a student at the end of a semester? How many of you think that this is the right tool to gauge a student? Any hand? Any show of hand? No. No teach. Even teachers don't believe that. So, what could be two ideas, if I ask from you people, which can replace this centuries old examination system? Projects. How would you rank the students in projects? There can be rubrics where you can define and then you can come up with the ranking problem, right? So that is one thing. Any others idea? You have been students throughout your life and you always hated these exams. So there must be an alternate solution for that. Well, that's a type of study, not assessment. But that's, yeah, good thing. We can think about that. Adoption of projects. And then, do we have any, if you're working in an organization, do you really get at the end of the year for your increments, you get that 3 hour stupid exam? No. So, what are those things, your annual, which are considered for your annual appraisal? Your KPIs. Can we implement these KPIs amongst the students? Yes, but then the challenge is if I wear my university cap, then what is the challenge? My controller of examination is not ready to budge because he's running a full secretariat, which is practically trained for that, right? Number one. Number two, what about higher education commission? What about accreditation councils? What about the whole academic infrastructure, which is at the national or at the provincial level? They're going to eat me up despite the fact that we want to change the things. But these traditional constraints, they stop us. See, the answer here is that we need to overcome these changes. And it's not computer science, it's not rocket science, it's simply changing the system. And this is where we have to understand. I mean, have you seen any university which has actually asked students that what would be the type of exam that you would love to have? No, that's our problem.
Just come out. In the design program, there are no tests. There are only projects. It's very easy to figure out how to rank projects. It's full. And our accreditation the School of Engineering, now insists that every class, rather than an exam, at the determination of your work. So when my undergraduate students are finishing their design degree, they have to do a capstone project. Otherwise, we don't get accreditation.
We also have an FYP grade by the capstone project. Yeah. What we got, we converted the result of that into a cadence.
But again, it's you cannot start without capital. And you had a huge problem that people will not put capital against an idea. They want to see something that's almost finished before they will pass. And as long as that's the case, you do not have a viable ecosystem to start. And third, as you mentioned, three things in Silicon Valley. Gathering. Way to exit, harvest the nugget. And then I would argue, smart. You hear us, sir. People like Bill and Dave is only right. If it's something you can do, engineering, that's not fun. You need to successfully start capital.
No, I think that's a very good point. So I think it's food for thought for some of the universities here in Pakistan. I know they have a lot of entrepreneurial department. Currently, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the model is that they link with a bunch of accelerators, with a bunch of VC, if I call them VC. So yes, I would feel that, look, there is access to capital if you go through these accelerators, but to Bill's point, we have not made it simple. It is not simple at all. And trust me. By the way, I ran Dot Zero Ventures earlier. We've been part of the VC community here. I have conversations with, other investors, and everyone's asking right now, are there good opportunities to invest in? All right. So capital is there. You have to seek it out. And I think we need to make that easier for people like yourselves. And especially, Bill is right. I think Stanford have made it very simple. So I think a lot of the universities here should tap into that, because you know what? They have first mover advantage, to be honest, right? I mean, they've been there, they know the people that are churning this stuff out. And when you invest in people, to be honest, right? So I think it's an opportunity. Um, and just to your point, Bill, about examples, right? That is so powerful. And, just to give you a little bit of a personal story, when I was growing up, right, I did the privilege of doing my undergrad in England, right? By the moment I was graduating, I thought, look, you know what? I'll go into the industry, get a job, and contribute back to my family, like most of us here want to do. That's how we're growing up. I got to Stanford, and that's where my mindset changed, because I saw people around me with bigger aspirations, and the aspiration was that, hey, uh, Sergey and Larry, they're just like us. They wore jeans, black t-shirts. Jennifer Whittam was their professor. She was my professor. They can create Google. Why can't we? So those success stories are important, and then that creates the whole thing. So you know, uh, I think it's a great point. I do feel that, and universities can tap in this thing. But if you're looking for capital, reach out to the career investors, etc. And I'll be happy to connect if you have a great idea that you want to get funded.
Yep. Okay, now that we have discussed all the problem areas and barriers that we are facing in bridging the gap, let's discuss a very specific collaboration that has started between Stanford and IBA. So how can this global collaboration between the two can foster innovation and help the students develop skills locally and make them ready for this kind of capital, like help them get that?
Well, I'll start. What we're good at is thinking about how design can create incredible products and services and experiences. And we're happy to share that. But many people here have a background in design. Um, most Silicon Valley companies don't start from design; they start from some technical idea. In my opinion, is that's why most of them fail. Is they don't really understand their market, they don't understand the user. But we can help supercharge that. We can just, not all of the things that we do there will work here. We need to localize things so that we understand what the local entrepreneur is challenged with, what they're facing. Um, but I've seen this happen in other places. I was in Lisbon about 12, 15 years ago, and they were just getting their venture industry going. They were just getting their startup industry going. And I went to be on a panel, and it was kind of like Shark Tank, where we were going to help the students with their ideas. And the ideas were terrible. I didn't say that, but the ideas were terrible at the time. But 12 years later, Lisbon is the center of entrepreneurship in all over the EU. And it built all the pieces it needed. It built the capital piece. It built the hero stories. It built the exits. And so the model is pretty straightforward. We just have to figure out where the blocks are, and what we can import directly, and then what do we need to modify to make it more energetic here. Um, this Karachi as a city has a wonderful history of culture and energy and you name it. I mean, this is a world-class city. It's the fifth largest city in the world. It deserves an ecosystem of entrepreneurship that's successful. The next 10, unicorns have to come from Karachi. Where else are they going to come from? You've got the talent, you've got the scale. I'm doing a big project in Singapore, and I'm working with some of the venture guys and the entrepreneurs and the incubators in Singapore. Singapore's 5 million people. Even if you scale an idea in Singapore, So what? The only thing that Singapore can do is address, and their advantages. They sit right next to, 400 million people in Malaysia, Indonesia, Southeast Asia. But Singapore itself is too small to generate the kind of energy that I know we can generate in Karachi.
Yes. So, yeah, in addition to what Bill had meant, so what we're trying to build at IBA along with Azam Saab, Shakil Saab, is a space, and we extend the Designing Your Life lab and create a space where conversations like this can happen, where dialogues like this it can take place. And as Bill said, let's create one benchmark place where these three things can come into being. Let's see where great ideas, great teaching, mentorship, and finding risk capital, and see how we build on that. So the road to one unicorn is a ton of more companies. We keep saying that it's a big city. I would be interested in finding out, maybe Atif knows better, how many startups do come in and get registered, let's say, per year, per annum. And I would think it is nowhere as close to what it should be within 25 million people. If we have not seen a unicorn as yet, I would imagine the reason for that would be there are just not enough companies coming through. One of the reasons that Bill said about Lisbon, 12 years ago, most of the entrepreneurs in Lisbon, were they not doing their startup as part time?
They wouldn't quit their job because it was too risky to start. And I said, you don't quit your job, I'm not going to invest.
Precisely.
If you don't believe in it, why should I? But it was illogical because they had no source of capital.
So, so, so let's build more companies. Let's come up with more ideas. Let's have spaces like this. One lab being set up at IBA is not going to solve the whole thing, but it's a step in the right direction. Stanford and Designing Your Life Lab, we've had these discussions with IBA and Azam Saab when he was in California. And the whole point was that IBA would be a conduit to reach everybody else in the city. And that is what we are committed to provide. Let's build a space which is an answer to all the people who want to build products. They want to build better products so that life can become easier for people.
Sorry, before moving forward, I have a follow-up question with you, Junaid, Aziz. We talked about taking risks, like people are not ready to leave their job and take that risk. How do you think we can help the local designers adopt a mindset of this resilience and take the step similar to how we have seen examples in Silicon Valley?
I'll start this answering to this question with an example. In my course of HCI, in one of the classes, I work on, that car loan calculator that you have seen on uh, every bank's webpage. I asked my students a question: is this loan calculator designed for the bank, for the bank manager, or for the customer? Everyone says it's on web, so it is for everyone. My answer to them is no, it's for the bank management, because the bank management, they want to understand that who the new client is, who the what sort of APR would be applied, and what would be the monthly installment and things like that. For a user who is planning to buy a new car, maybe on a bank loan, it would be that what are his day-to-day problems of commutation. Like, for example, how much money he's spending on Uber, how much money he is spending on, how many miles he have to walk, how many problems his family is facing because they don't have a car, for example. So can you think of a calculator which can work in that perspective? See, the point here is change. We train our students to think differently. This is what IB has been famous for the last many years. The idea is that can we bring a change? So this design lab or any other lab is just a small, you know, it's just a small beginning. But we have to change everyone because we have to think from that perspective. It's just a different thinking that we are trying to inculcate in students' mind. And that's why we believe that IBA's, decision to go into this consortium with Stanford will definitely yield results. And secondly, we are learning from the leaders. That's the best thing we can have.
So the question was, how can we look at taking risks? So it is. I mean, the fact is right that when 15 years ago, when I started talking to university students in Pakistan, I used to ask them, how many of you want to do your own startup after graduating? One person would put their hand up. That was it, maximum. There was a very low risk appetite. Now, alhamdulillah, it's a lot better, right? I mean, when you talk to students who are about to graduate, a lot of them are thinking about it. I think it's interesting, if you go back a couple of years, it was a big wave in Pakistan for startups, right? There was a lot of good success stories coming out, etc. And then there's been a downturn. Now, by the way, that downturn is not just Pakistan specific, right? In general, you go to any entrepreneur anywhere in the world today, raising capital is one of the hardest things, right? I mean, I mean, I'm sure it's relative in different countries, but you have to convince the investor of giving up money. So, having said that, I think right now, yes, it's a hard time to raise capital. Not because capital doesn't exist. It's just that, investors are a lot more value conscious. They're a lot more unit economic driven. Earlier, it was easier to get away with valuations and, show people that this is what I'm going to, this is how many billions I want to generate, etc. So it's a lot more now about unit economics, etc. So the point is, though, if I take a step back, if you look at the macro picture, Bill and Junaid, everyone's right that look, Karachi is a huge city. In adversity, there is opportunity. When you see all the problems around you, my mentor in the valley used to say, "There's no such thing as challenges. There's just opportunity." Right. So it's how you look at things. Number one. So there are a number of problems out there that we need to solve and can be solved. If you look at the Kareem example, yes, okay, it was never a Pakistan-based company. It was based in the UAE, but they were solving a localized problem that wasn't unique, but you had to solve it locally, right? And forget about Dubai. You had to solve it for Pakistan, for Cairo, for all the other cities that you were going to. So it was almost like a startup in every country. You had to go and solve the local problems. Um, so the point is that, and there were people who used to ask, yeah, why are you taking a risk? But the question I would ask people back is when you talk about risk, I say, what do you have to lose? Right? You're going to learn much more than other people if you were just to take a non-risk based role, etc., somewhere, etc. And at the end of the day, what do you call failure? I mean, the fact that your startup failed, is that a failure? No, it's not a failure at all. It becomes a failure if you don't learn from it, right? So if you do it second time, third time around, you don't learn from your mistakes, but that's not failure, right? So you have to embrace failure to some extent. You have to get away this fear of failure, and that I think in itself then energizes a person to do it. Now there are companies out there today in Pakistan that are on the path to becoming unicorns, right? There are startups out there. The trick you have to solve here is the unit economics, the business model, right? Otherwise, the volume is there. There's no issue in terms of volume, in terms of what you need to do. So, my from your perspective, I would say get away from the mindset of fear, bring in positivity, optimism, etc. Now, on the flip side, I think us in the industry, as policymakers, we need to do a lot more for you guys, right? We need to make ease of business much easier, right? In terms of being able to set up companies, access to capital, being able to get foreign investment, being able to repatriate investments that investors need to make. All of that good stuff has to happen. We have to help you get your access to customers, right? I mean, yes, local markets are good, but if you want to start reaching out to regional markets, access to those markets and stuff, and we need to help you make that happen. And we need to be able to give you capital, right? Where we're more risk averse as investors. So in general, though, I think from your perspective, what you can control, it's really get out of this mindset of fear. Um, and always think about, the opportunities that are out there because they are huge. You can take any single problem and you can disrupt that model, or you can even just solve it. It's been solved probably somewhere else. You just have to localize. You have to solve it for your localized problem, and that's how you have to go about it.
By the way, it is very hard to be an entrepreneur. Even if you have capital and everything else, it's hard. I've started 2 companies. One I sold successfully and one I ran straight into the ground. Some of my best days in my career have been where we went to a big trade show, we were the head of the show, we won all the awards, and everybody thought we were great. And some of my worst days as an entrepreneur was telling everybody, I'm sorry, we didn't raise the next round. You have to go home. You don't have a job anymore. These are my friends. So don't do this unless you're willing, to work really hard and to suffer some really difficult situations. But where else in the world do you get to decide that the problem that you see that nobody else sees needs solving? And that if you solve the problem and then solve it again and solve it again and solve it again, you can create tremendous impact in your culture, in your society. Please don't start another food delivery company. Please don't start another social media company. My students have done all of those. My student Evan Spiegel started Snapchat. I gave him a very bad grade when he turned it in. I said it was a dumb idea. Turned out to be a big idea. If you have your emoji thing in the bottom of your iPhone thing, that's from a company called Tenor, started by one of my students. He just sold it to Google. So when you're successful as an entrepreneur, you can have an impact that is impossible to have any other way. And be prepared to fail, if you call it failure, 9 out of 10 times. But I actually think that's not necessary. That statistic doesn't tell the truth. If you solve a need that people have at a unit economics that makes sense, you can have a successful startup. Everything doesn't have to be $10 billion, right? So, I don't want to discourage people from thinking like an entrepreneur. That's a great thing to do. But before you decide to become one, because all the problems we talked about, they're not going to go away tomorrow. You're going to have to find capital. You're going to have to find a great idea. And you're going to have to find a way to get it to the market. And these are not easy problems. Not easy problems at all.
Okay. This I will ask one last question before opening the stage to the audience for Q&A. This is for everyone who raised their hands when they wanted to become a designer. So, what are some key milestones or outcomes we can expect from this partnership in the next 3-5 years, and how these people can leverage becoming a designer?
Right now, we're training 40 IBA instructors on a class we call Designing Your Life, which is based on design thinking. It comes from my lab, the Life Design Lab. We're going to be rolling out the first class. Jay is staying. I'm going back on Friday, but Jay is staying 3 months to roll out the very first class. Azam and Jay will be teaching this class together. And then we plan to have class for all the undergraduates and all the graduate students. There's a new executive MBA program coming up in next year. We're going to arrange for the executive MBA students to come to Stanford for a 1-week block on designing your life. And then we're also going to be building out an innovation curriculum very similar to the one we have at Stanford. Again, localized around the needs of local entrepreneurs and the local ecosystem. But we'll be transferring all of that, and there'll be a number of professors going back and forth over the next 3 years. Really build something that is unique and address a local.
So yes, in addition to what all that Bill has said, the most important thing is that starting in January, we will have a space at IBA, and the space is not a physical space. necessarily. It's just a space where there will be a community that we've spun. These 40 people who are getting trained, the idea is that they will go out and inspire, and they will each pull in a friend here, a friend there. And suddenly at IBA, we'll have a community of 80 people by February, March, who are all curious, who are all thinking through how can we improve whatever our main skill set is. I'm a teacher, how can I teach better? If I am running an incubator, how can I create systems where you get better ideas coming through? If I am part of the policymakers, city administration, wherever it is, there's a community of people now which will be open. And answer, am I correct that everyone will be open to join? You're not, it's not going to have any barriers. You don't have to be from IBA. You don't have to be from any of the recognized work streams coming in. If you are curious, you want to, you have ideas, this will be the space to come in and bring them. Now, great ideas, what they do need is a system. You want, your idea cannot exist in isolation. An idea, along with people who will be interested in your ideas because they're curious people. You just put together a community of people who genuinely want to hear what you have to say and what you want to build. And along the way, you'll be surprised at the collaboration and support that you might be able to find from these areas. Um, Other than that, we're redesigning the EMBA program as Bill mentioned. And then every year, there'll be a team from Stanford, from California, who will be coming to Karachi, spending time in Karachi. And as Karachi wakes up, and hopefully we do not have an empty auditorium when people are here to communicate and share, we will start seeing more and more results. Everything takes time. We're starting at the ground floor. We're ready to start, and Atif is right here. He's been such a huge collaborator. Right now, when we started talking about this, Venture Dive was the one company that came forward that we knew of. Atif is taking a bet on this collaboration. He has no way of knowing whether he'll show up here next year. He's taking a bet right now. He has put his weight behind it. He's made his time here. He has driven and given up 5 things to speak in front of an auditorium. These are all expressions of interest. Now, nobody can come to Karachi, either from California or from heaven itself, to solve all our problems. We will have to roll up our sleeves and we will have to solve. But can we make it easier? Can we just have a higher ROI on that effort? That is what this collaboration should be doing.
Thank you. Being the Dean of School of Mathematics and Computer Science, my job is to provide capacities and resources. So at the Center for ICT, we would be starting our diploma programs, our certificate programs, and workshops. Especially the curriculum would be coming from Stanford, and the trained people would be trained by Stanford people. They would be coming and working at CICT. At the same time, at the School of Mathematics and Computer Science, we are coming up with a new data science building. And the top floor of that building is basically kept for the innovation lab. That is the place where our students would be using the things that we've learned through design for life or design thinking techniques, and they would be using it for EIT innovation. And I strongly believe that uh, perhaps the first unicorn in Pakistan would be from the IT sector. So that may be a small kindle towards that direction that our innovation lab would be. I'm not sure whether the first unicorn would be coming from IB or it would be much before that, but hopefully one day our labs will also produce a unicorn. So that's our dream.
So look, I think I'm a big believer in collaborations. IBA started with a collaboration, right? If you guys are aware, IBA has been churning out business leaders, right? A generation of business leaders through the collaboration with Water. My The reason I got very excited when IBA and Stanford wanted to get together, not only because I'm from Stanford, my wife was from IBA, is from IBA, but I also feel very strongly that what Pakistan needs is the next generation of problem solvers. And that is exactly what design thinking will solve, right? But in essence, by the way, so I know a lot of you here are designers, right? And it's because from the Daira community, we invited designers. But you know what you really are problem solvers. And by the way, this thing should not be restricted just to designers, just because we call it design thinking, right? I mean, it's actually problem solving. And I fundamentally believe that what will help our country going forward is our ability to be curious, number one. It's very interesting. I've had multiple conversations. I think one thing we don't do well in our education system is instill this sense of curiosity. And I think, we need very quickly to start instilling that sense of curiosity. But honestly, if I look at it from the industry perspective and what I see in terms of, some of the talent that we need coming out of our universities, it is problem solvers. Yes, you need to be good at coding, you need to be good at designing, but at the end of the day, what will be valued is your ability to solve problems that exist out there. So my challenge as part of this collaboration between Stanford and IBA is that I want to see a whole generation of problem solvers being churned out and really helping us innovate here in Pakistan.
That was very well said by Atif that we all are problem solvers, irrespective of what the tool is, what the skills are, we all are problem solvers. And that's also what Bill's book is all about, applying that same design thinking, problem solving skills to anywhere. Before wrapping up, we can now have some questions from the audience. If anyone want to ask, this is your chance. Yes.
I think things are changing. IBA, which was famous for producing employees for the corporate sector, it's not same anymore. I mean, if I quote this example, that our computer science graduates, they are more highly employable as compared to business or other programs. So this clearly proves that the things are changing. And at the same time, at the input level, the admission criteria for computer science and other science programs is tougher as compared to business graduates. So things are changing. And whether it is the entrepreneurship team or it is the IT team, they are now realizing the fact that the things have changed. Like, I mean, there was a time when in a business school, people were taught how to wear a suit or how to wear formal clothing. Those are those things are gone. I mean, now, as I said, even in earlier, that not everyone will be employable by the corporate sector or by the companies. So we have to go for startups. And that's why IBA was first to start the Center for Entrepreneurship 15 years ago. And now almost every university is coming up with an entrepreneurship center. So, I mean, I would say that your answer has been addressed, but it's slow. We need to move up on the pace. That is something that is the gap here. And I guess we have to work on that.
I'm actually surprised that we've spoken for almost an hour and nobody has said the word AI. I'm not sure my university will exist in 5 years. I'm not sure Harvard will exist in 5 years, or Stanford will exist in 5 years, or MIT will exist in 5 years. Because the disruption that AI represents is fundamental. And, if we're going to continue to educate people to work for industry, and the industry is not going to have any jobs for them, then we're really missing the boat, right? We're not responding to what society needs, what people need, and what the students need. If you continue to educate students to simply get the right answer and be a good corporate worker, where are they going to work? We need half as many bankers, half as many lawyers, half as many business people. AI can do most of the transactional work that you're trained to do in university. And so if we don't radically change the objective, the learning objective, to curiosity, to problem solving, to 21st century skills. Everybody talks about 21st century skills. Well, what are those skills? Look at the World Economic Forum. They're all design skills. Collaboration, empathy, understanding humans, learning how to work together, critical thinking, problem solving. They're all design skills. So, let's not underestimate the tsunami that's coming. And, there's a lot of hype around AI and stuff, but it's quite clear that we've entered a completely different generation of technology. And whether it's 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years, for it to finally permeate into the corporate world and to hollow out the jobs that were boring anyway, right? Now, new jobs will be created and fantastic new opportunities will emerge. I'm quite positive. I'm very optimistic that AI is going to make the world a much, much better place. But if you're not anticipating that in your organization, and if we're not training students for the modern organization that's going to emerge, then we're not doing a very good job. And for the kinds of people that you're looking for, that's exactly the kind of people we should be training, right? Because even your organization will be radically transformed by AI. You know, a lot of my students, a lot of students at Stanford are not engineering students. Only 30% of the students at Stanford are engineering students. But many of them study economics. They go into a business school. They want to be an investment banker. They want to be an investment advisor. They want to be in private equity. They want to be in the finance world because the rewards, the salaries and the rewards are very high in those worlds. And I was talking to some people in the Wealth Management Institute in Singapore, and I said, you train a lot of people who do essentially, they move some money around and they take a little percentage. Kind of what they do. I mean, I don't mean to, be rude and say that, people who are doing this aren't important. They're important. They're smart. It's complicated. But why would I pay you an 8% investor's banking fee to manage my money when my AI outperformed you by 50%? I don't have to pay the AI anything. And so I think you really have to think deeply about what are the skills we should be training people for in a world post, 5 years, 7 years, 8 years down the road. In a postmodern world, first of all, let me also state there is no such thing as artificial general intelligence. I don't believe there ever will be. That's a different subject. I talk about the hard problem of consciousness. We can have a whole nother symposium on that. But I think you're right. We need these mindset changes. And by the way, we don't have a whole lot of time to get there because if you can't think like a designer in the next 5 years, I don't know what kind of a job you can have.
I think someone was waiting for that. We can take that one first.
It's a whole.
And you can interview.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Ali Weldon, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Wakil AI, a legal tech AI platform aiming to bring the law that was made for you to you. So my question revolves around the fact that creating resources is a very fundamental part in Pakistan. But retaining those resources in Pakistan is becoming a greater challenge than training those resources because we have impeccable engineers, outstanding mathematicians, designers, whatnot. But in the end, what happens is they all move abroad, claiming better jobs, better ecosystems, better places to work with it. What policies and implementations can we put forth to retain those resources here in Pakistan to make this economy much more sustainable?
Look, the tech industry is global. You have to think of yourself as a global company, and you have to compete globally. So you cannot fight that battle in the sense that, if someone is going to get a better opportunity, by the way, they don't even have to move. They can just stay here and work, right? So you have to start reimagining yourself as a global company, or at least that not only is your supply global, but your demand is global as well. And that's how you build your business model. So look, this is inevitable, right? I mean, I think COVID kind of kick-started it, and then it's now just a remote industry that you're working in. So I don't think you should try to battle it. I think you should try to ride that wave. And the positive side of it is, look, you have a global supply as well that you can tap into. But yeah, I mean, bake in your costs, right? Because the basic difference is cost that you're talking about.
The last one, U.S. Go back. Great job.
Basically, what you're saying is to what Atif's thing is, it comes down to cost. So if you're selling in hard rupees and you have to pay in hard rupees versus somebody, as Atif said, hires your talent and is able to pay them in a foreign currency, it's always going to be an uphill task for you. The way to improve is hire better designers, build your product so that you can attract audience and customers and revenue in a different currency, and suddenly you'll be on the right side of the equation. The fundamental point of being a problem solver, what Azam Saab is building here at IBA, is that ability. How soon can we pivot? How soon can we reframe the problem? And all the problems are not going to go away, but there's always a way to find a path through that.
Half of Snapchat's resources, and I know them very well because my students started, half of Snapchat's resources are in the Ukraine. We spent a little bit of a problem. And half of their other resources are in Belarus and other places. They go wherever they can find the best talent. You go wherever you can find the best talent. But the other thing is you got to have a big idea. OpenAI was 20 kids with laptops in a crappy office in a strip mall. Chat 1 didn't work. Chat 2 didn't work. Chat 3 is starting to look interesting. Chat 4, now we're in a different place. But they didn't have billions of dollars of servers when they started. Anyone here could have started OpenAI. You have the talent. You have the equipment. What happened? Who was asleep? And AI isn't just in Silicon Valley. It's in France because the mathematicians in France are extraordinary. The best math in the world comes out of France, or a place like Pakistan, or a place like Ukraine, or Russia, where they have a fantastic mathematics. As you're at your school, a fantastic mathematics background. We're in the world of big math. I don't even think you need to study how to code because the machines can code themselves pretty soon. They can't do the math themselves. And they need a mindset. Like and by the way, the AI game isn't over. It just started. You're doing an AI startup. Where are the other AI startups? There's 1,300 venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. 1,300 firms. You don't need to duplicate that yet. But there's 1,200 AI startups in the Valley right now. And that's probably wrong. It's probably, since I left a week ago, there's probably 100 more. Let's get going. Now's the time. This is the moment when everything's changing. There are no leaders. You don't want to screw around with Microsoft. Come on, it's Microsoft. They're never going to have a good idea. Apple? I worked at Apple for 7 years. They're going to have some good ideas. But you don't need to wait. You don't need anybody's permission. Get on the internet. Make something amazing. We'll find you, Apple.
I have a question. So, how can we make design education more scalable and accessible to build more interest? So, let me share you an example. So, in our childhood, everyone knows everyone wants to everyone wants to become a engineer, but no one wants to become an informatic data. So, how can we build better interest from the school level or college level? By making it more enjoyable, by capturing the imagination of kids. So right here we've got, I can use your example if you don't mind. So Abe Saab here teaches math at IBA. He's part of our venture studio. And he's waking up at 5:30 in the morning. He has done all the pre-work to getting trained, and he's waking up every morning to learn a new way of teaching. So I'll just pass the mic on to him, and he can just give you an example of what his experience is for 2 days. That's just 2 days, and he says that he has learned a new way of teaching. So let me pass the mic.
Assalamualaikum. So I'm Shoaib. I'm faculty in computer science and mathematics. Uh, I'm really enjoying the course that you guys have started here at IBA. Uh, I think like when we teach at IBA, or generally when mathematicians teach, they feel like they have to put students through some pain in the class in order to get results.
The same way at 99, right?
Yeah, but like at your place, it seemed like we were able to learn, and they handled. Uh, we were allowed to be anonymous while we learned the system, and so we could get away with being foolish. And now I think they're turning down the anonymity so that I just want to see how this plays out. Uh, can I also make a statement? Go for a side statement. You mentioned that Pakistan has a lot of opportunities. Like this is an unrelated comment. Related to that comment that you said that Pakistan has a lot of opportunities. I just want to add that if you solve stuff in Pakistan, then the market structures, especially if you look at the commodity market structures, the agricultural commodity market structures, they are replicated in India and Bangladesh. And so if you saw stuff here, like you have the RT system here, the commission agent system here, if you solve stuff here, you can scale it to India, Bangladesh, possibly. I mean, I'm not 100% on this, but 2 billion people, I think. India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh together. So,
That's scale.
so I'm very excited about
The
it.
word exactly.
I can teach anyone to be a designer. The design technique. Learn UI UX. I need people who can think like a designer, with a different mindset, who aren't limited in their beliefs of what can happen. Find those people, bring them, and just teach them, train them. But I don't know how to. You need people who are a little more angry. Like, this isn't okay. We got to fix the world. I want to fix this part of the world. Let's go. Let's do it. And you need clients who want to fix the world, who want to design the best level. I consulted from growing traditional best standards. And if that had been an Apple, people would say, oh, we want an Apple. Do you want an Apple quality design? And I would look at them and I would say, you have no idea. For an Apple quality design, probably a $2 million check. It's going to take 14 months. You want something done in 6 weeks, $50,000. Do not insult me again. I never asked me that question. Should I have an Apple? Did you design at the level of Apple? This is just about how things look. It's about how they work, what they mean, what people feel like when they use them. people will get in fist fights over their Macintosh. You ever seen anybody give a crap about their Windows laptop? Who cares? You want to build that kind of quality, you got to start from emotion. I bet how that's the process. So we can create that generation of people who are hungry and problem solving is their thing. And they're restless because they see so much bad design around. They want to fix it. And if you got those, you get that attitude, teaching the other problem. Let's say, do we select big one? Done. When students pick up software like that, I'm always asking, what's that problem? Because I want to see what they're choosing. So it's a global economy, which means there are no barriers. Something great, something in the United States, whatever. But it's unique.
The whole chain, you can build the whole chain. The question originally was, how do you make it more accessible? Right? What's happening at Stanford, a piece of Silicon Valley. How do we bring it here? Bring it as enough people bringing the network who are obsessive to make it happen for you. I've Southern California not once but 3 times. Then he got in touch with pizza right here and said, I want to do this with you. You run a school, you run a school. In case faculty tries to take this to you. Then there are some people in California who really now when he goes out and impacts 200 people that he teaches every semester, somewhere in there you will see a third one, you will see a plain and indicator. Then hopefully as time goes by, we take it to us, we take it to intermediate and A-level students. Doing it for enough. Here in California, our design thinking is taught in primary schools. You have to start somewhere. That's why I think what they are. That's the kind of answer.
खपती होना पड़ता है. So you have to be crazy, obsessively crazy, right? I mean, I think that's the only way you'll actually do it. But a few other things, right? Just based on experiences. Look, first of all, you need to have big aspirations. I think a lot of the time the ideas are okay, right? Have big ideas, all right? Be khapti about it, right? So be obsessive about it. And the third thing I would say, take pride, go deep into what you're doing. There's so many times people come to me and say, oh, I'm done with this. Can I learn something else? No, man, you're not done with this. It is so deep, to be the best in that, you have to go deep. And that means you come out as a craft. So those are the few things I would say. And that's how you can then compete at the global level. And that's how you'll excite people. That's how you'll get the best talent. And that's how you'll get results, inshallah.
Okay. Sorry. Pardon me. Because I'm quite sleepy attending the training since morning. So yeah. Oh, okay. So I think during this panel discussion, we've identified a lot of ingredients which are needed for the ecosystem that you're talking about. We have identified that we need skills. We have a lot of computer scientists, engineers, doctors. Skills are there. Um, Although Burhan said we don't have capital, but I don't believe in it. If the idea is right, we have a lot of capital to flow into. But the idea has to be right. Mm. So we can access capital, we have the skill set, but what's missing is connection between all of them, and we are also sitting on a land of opportunities, I call it. Although it's a land of challenges, but in it's actually the land of opportunities in terms of the kind of problems we have and the opportunities to solve those problems and convert them into businesses. But as a university, like for example at Stanford, you said that engineers, they don't know about the market. So how to build that connection, or of course the design studio is here and Center of Entrepreneurial Development is here at IBA to create those connections. But if I asked you very specifically, step number 1, 2, 3, that how we can actually create connections between the marketeers, the financiers, the the computer scientists were very good at tech, but they're not ready to understand the problem, or they're not ready to take any input from the market. So, what could be the first, second, third step for that?
Look, I think so. You're saying how can you have more well-rounded people, or are you saying how can you connect them?
It's correct. I guess building that capability of understanding the problem and solving that with the tech rather than just really.
So I say that all the time to the tech people. I don't know if it's easier to do that to the business people and have them learn tech, but I'll start from the tech side. That's absolutely right. I think one of the fundamental things that I tell people in my organization, people that, we reach out to is you have to empathize with who you're building that tech for, right? At the end of the day, up you can make anything, but if it's not being used or the counterpart does not see value out of it, then it means nothing. So absolutely, I think what engineers need to know is what are they building and who are they building for, which fundamentally is what design thinking tries to inculcate into people. Um, and that is fundamental. So, and we see that all the time, right? So people are coming out of the universities, they are majorly lacking. They are majorly lacking on that side of, the world is a global collaboration. It is. I mean, honestly, I would encourage more open source collaboration within Pakistan. We hardly do that, right? But that definitely needs to happen on the tech side. I don't have much experience on the business side and how they can learn tech, but for sure, I think, design thinking can help solve some of those challenges.
I would definitely say that we have to make our curriculum so holistic. I will only talk about academia, so that's my constraint. So I would only say that our curriculum should be so holistic that it should have certain aspects of business, certain aspects of entrepreneurship, but at the same time, we should be strong enough to convert our ideas into reality, because that's where the challenge is. If a student is at university, take example of final year projects or capstone projects, all of them are shelved. Why? Because at the start of the project, the students are super excited. They want to conquer the world. But what happens once the grades are released? They're looking after their jobs. They forget about everything. Where is that encouragement gone? Where is that, the fun gone? That's the challenge. So because they are really seeing that if the output was just to get a grade, then it has to be a grade. If the output was to go into a market to make sure that this particular capstone project will empower them to start their own company or to have a better job than this, or if an FIP solves a problem. So this is where we should be looking at. But unfortunately, our problems, they are, if you're taking an academic, it's just, if you're just thinking differently, then it will not solve it. That's what I have to say.
Steve Jobs couldn't write a piece of code. Steve Jobs didn't know anything about how computers work. He had a buddy named Steve Wozniak. Wozniak built that computer, not Jobs. Jobs sold that whole computer. Woz built it. There's a lot of research in entrepreneurship that says pairs are always stronger than an individual. I never start anything without a strong partner. I'm not here without this guy because he knows the culture and he knows IBA. I don't know any of that. I would make so many mistakes, so I always have a partner. In my first company, I had a marketing partner. In my second company, I had a business partner. I didn't know how to raise money. He knew how to raise money. I didn't know how to make the business case. Here's a classic example. Designers say, "This is amazing. It's never been done before. It's incredible." We designers go, "That's awesome. That's what we're looking for. It's never been done before." Business person says, "Well, too risky. It's never been done before. There's no evidence that there's a market for it." We don't know how to talk to business people, and we could learn a little bit. Find a partner. and find ways for us to put partners together so that they can, so that we can jumpstart the ecosystem. All the time, the whole D school's purpose was to get people from the business school to come over to our side of the campus, get people from the law school to come over, people from the med school to come over. It's an interdisciplinary institute for graduate students. That's what it really is. And it's transformational because people learn to work together who have completely different backgrounds. Completely different backgrounds.
For the training, there are people from all schools, right? From the School of Social Sciences, School of Business, School and Mathematics. That is where it starts. So now, hopefully, in the next 3-4 months, when we come up with newer classes, all students from all schools will start attending these classes together. We'll hopefully be able to have undergrad and graduate students together. And that's what starts. In an ideal world, who knows? Maybe we can have classes where IBA students and Indus Valley School of Architecture, Affinity School of Architecture are taking classes together. Let's get a few students from AKU to come in and learn this way. Let's get our friend from the who's changing the legal system and you creating information of law or access to law. That's better. That's more achievable. Yes, in this country, information is achievable. I'm with you on that. But that's the idea. That interdisciplinary staying it is one thing, having a game, and you need to have people who are brave enough to do that. His job's not going to be easy. His job's not going to be easy. Zaidi Saab, the director, his job's not going to be easy either. But that is what we want from our teachers. That is what we want from the education sector. That take the risks and hopefully they will start producing students who have a larger risk appetite.
Assalamu alaikum. So my name is Ahmed and I've been through entrepreneurial journey plus corporate journey over here in Karachi and Pakistani environment. So I really appreciate this initiative of setting up this design life lab over here and integrating this kind of concepts in minds early on. So uh now after spending like 8 to 10 years over here, so and being a bit more realistic, what's the roadmap do you people have to have this mindset and setting up this ecosystem on a holistic level? Because setting up this kind of system over here is again a design challenge on its own. So how soon do you think this will happen? How soon will it be able to impact corporate people to leave their jobs and come into this ecosystem?
How about we each take 1 minute to 30 seconds to answer this question?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a very quick look at it, quick crack at it. Or when we are the people, 25 million people in the city, it will have to begin with that. We will have to get more curious. We will, once the call goes out, if more people line up, give up what they're doing, and show up, that is where it will start. So I think it will have to start with us. Nobody can come from California and fix everything. Because whenever Atif has mentioned, he has studied in 3 different continents because he was seeking knowledge. So it will have to start with a larger, much bigger appetite from us so that we can start showing up. That is where you will learn. Once we learn that, we are building an ecosystem, a space where people can come together and ideas can be discussed. That is where we will have partnerships happening. Oh, I know a thing or two about coding. I know a thing or two about selling. I know a thing or two about how to have show empathy with customer. I know somebody in media and maybe we can get some PR going. That is how it will happen. But it all begins with people showing up.
So this kind of claims were there by different startups and startup co-working spaces and accelerators that exist over here in Pakistan. So how different would this be from them?
What was all the claims that
Uh, Same that you are basically saying. So
I don't know.
So the way it systems that people are coming from, it's change in the way of because following the proper military accelerators or integration currently they're not the accelerator weighted. The money they're not regulatory. What are basically changes like that or the approach towards seeking a result. And so that is I think what this is positive.
और सोच ही बदल रहा है का
ये देखिए कराची में थोड़ा सा
You have to identify what actually accelerators and integrators do is that they are trying to address the center. But this is trying to solve the root cause. That's the difference between.
देखिए, सोच जो है वो 25 मिलियन पीपल जो पाकिस्तान के मतलब लेट्स से कराची के जो हैं, उनके ऊपर जो कुछ 100 पीपल हैं जो इस्लामाबाद रीजन में होते हैं, उनसे उनकी पॉलिसीज़ से भी बहुत मैटर करता है। वहाँ तक कैसे पहुँचेंगे क्योंकि जब तक वहाँ से इम्पैक्ट नहीं आएगा तो ओवरऑल यू कांट चेंज द इकोसिस्टम। ये लाइक एवरीवन लुक्स ओवर इट एंड बट
It's essentially cynical view that
Yeah, no, like, so my point is that you have to there are things that you have in your control, and that is what you focus on. Look, I'm going to leave that aside, but what I can assure you is, first of all, I don't think it's going to be cool. In my humble opinion, I don't think it's going to be quick, the output that we see. But fundamentally, we have to start changing the way people think. If I just look at your question about accelerators and stuff, unless we solve the the ability of our entrepreneurs in terms of how they can solve the problems that they're trying to go to, accelerators will also not be successful. So I think this is actually trying to do it at the lower level. And I personally would like this to be done all the way down at the school level because that is actually when you start training human minds. So it will take time. I mean, that's why I said my success started when we can have a generation of, problem solvers coming out. And then eventually they will also get into our policy making decisions, right? And then you start seeing change. So it has to start somewhere and it can change. You took the example of Portugal, right? I mean, I know a lot of people in Pakistan today who moved to Portugal, right? Lisbon. It's attracting tech talent and stuff. So these systems can be created. It takes time, but you have to start, and you have to start with the mindset, with the way we try to solve our problems.
I believe that the success of this lab would be solving a local problem. So the more local problems we have, the more solutions we're coming up with, that would really flourish this lab. Again, coming to that, if the people in Islamabad are going to change their lives, the answer is no. If you look at some real examples in Karachi, for example, the schools established by Citizen Foundation. Now, they never went to Islamabad to get permissions. They saw the problem, they came up with a solution which is primarily donation based and a low cost schooling solution for the underprivileged areas of Karachi. And today they are running more than 1,000 schools. So they came up with a success story. So, and if we see, there are plenty of success stories which are not controlled by the Islamabad. So I'm very much optimistic about this. That yes, we have to solve.
I'm a visitor here. I don't know about any of these problems. I mean, I'm reading and trying to educate myself quickly. But if it's of any value to you, no one in Silicon Valley does anything with the government. In fact, we think the government just gets in the way. So we don't look to the government. And every once in a while, California will start some incubators. Like the state-based system for innovation always fails. Every once in a while, National Science Foundation puts out a bunch of money for new entrepreneurs. Always fails. We don't believe that those are the systems that create change. We believe that it's the entrepreneurs who are the systems that create change. And we stay as far away from the federal government as we can because they just screw things up. By the way, fund like Intel's venture capital fund, a complete disaster in the Valley. They screw up every deal they're in part of and they ruin it because they're a corporate. Cisco's corporate venture fund, equally disastrous. It's not about that. It's not about getting some big person to come down and help you. It doesn't work that way in the Valley. Now, I mean, you have other significant issues, and I don't understand all of the issues with the government and other things, but just so you know, we don't rely on any of those systems to make our system work. Because when something gets to the scale of a large corporation or a municipal government or a state government or a federal government, it's just by nature, it moves too slowly to capture the value that a startup sees in a new market. And so you don't need the government. You don't want the government to get in the way, specifically. I'll give you an example. China used to be a hotbed of entrepreneurship. Thousands and thousands of companies are created every year in China. Under the current Chinese regime, they just passed a law. And the law says that if your startup goes bankrupt, the founder is individually responsible for paying back all the investors. You know how many startups started this year in China? 0. So that's how a government can destroy an ecosystem by not understanding how it works, right? Or actually, they understand very much how it works. They just want to control it. You've got a much better system than that here, and you got lots and lots of ways to work. And I'm with you. It's like we can focus on all the problems, or we can focus on all the opportunities. Better focus on the problems, fine. But and I'm not saying and the problems impact your startup, and problems impact your ability to perform. The fact that people would rather go to Dubai and live there than here is an issue. They're all all designs have constraints. Are we talking about moving forward? Or are we talking about what's holding us back? That's the mindset we're trying to change, right? And you get disappointed a lot when you're an entrepreneur because you do see changes that are possible. That just for whatever reason just doesn't happen. But you can't lose hope. Otherwise, everybody just moves, and that's not the solution. This is a brilliant, vibrant culture full of brilliant, smart people. You can figure this out.